Hey, folks, welcome back to the Land Fixer podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Logan Swanson. Today we have an exciting guest, Mr. Peter Toth. Say hi to everybody.
Good day. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being here. Folks, remember, if you need funding for any of your land flips, land subdivisions, development projects, as long as they're flat, feel free to reach out to us at landpartnerfunding.com, or you can email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. Also, if you're a landowner and you have a property you're looking to partner with somebody like myself to try to maximize your return when you sell that property, or just get something moved that's been sitting stale on the market for a long time, I'm here to help you with that. Again, email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. All right. All that aside, Peter, thanks for being here. If you would tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then I am going to ask you a lot of very intense questions.
All right. I'm ready for the intense and interesting questions. So I have been in the land business since 2017. I came from a background in corporate America where I always sort of had the feeling that I wanted to be my own boss and wanted to do something in real estate, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. So I was kind of riding the corporate, train as long as I could. But that world is certainly changing now, and in my world, it was even changing then. The company that I was with, the division that I was with, kind of merged with somebody else. I can kind of tell they wanted to get their own people in there, and I had moved around a lot, which sometimes in corporate America you have to do, and I was just kind of hired to that. So somehow. I think it was probably a Seth Williams podcast or not
Yep.
podcast, YouTube video. Um, I found land. I started saying, wow, this seems like something that I could do and seems like something interesting. And so I took the Land Academy training. They had, a course. Now there's a lot of courses. Um, Quality does vary, so be careful. But
Is that
for
the
me, it was very,
Jack and Jill Bosch, right? Is that their program?
no, no. So Jack Butala,
Butella, okay.
Jack Bosch, he's got, I think, what's his land
That's
generator?
right. Yeah, yeah. Land
Yeah,
profit
yeah,
generator.
land,
Yeah.
land, land profit generator. And so there's value to all that. There's,
Hmm.
but it's like, all right, once you take education, what are you going to do? And I was lucky. I found a mentor who's, already doing it, and he was very helpful. It really gave me the kick in the rear to get me started because it's like, all right, you take this training. It's like, all right, if you're going to do mailers, you got to get them out the door. It doesn't do you
Yeah.
any good to just overthink it. So, um, he helped me get them out the door. And so I started really in Arizona, the traditional starting place from land
Yeah.
investors doing 40-acre desert squares. And, I was buying those for five and six and $7,000 at the time. Um, not really knowing exactly, trying to figure out what I was doing. And
Yeah.
then started doing Florida, started doing some other states, but kind of went up in size as I went along, and also purchase price because
Yeah.
in today's world, let's say you're trying to target 100%, markup or 100% return. Yeah, if you try and buy for 5,000, sell for 10,000, you can't get anywhere doing that.
Yeah. There's no economy of scale. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it used to be with a lot less people sending mail, sending out 1,000 letters, you could get a deal or two, and
Yep.
that wasn't unusual. But now it takes a lot more than that. There's a lot more competition. So you have to go upstream, have to go to those bigger numbers to, if you want to make a business out of it, to make it viable.
Yeah. I remember, my story is very similar. I did like the land geek education, did some rural, a bunch of like West Texas desert squares. And I remember, it used to be very common for us to buy a parcel per 100 mailers, when we started. And I think the best I ever did is I remember I sent like 100 or 150 piece mailer and I bought five properties, all at the target purchase price. So those days are gone. That does not exist anymore, as far as I know, unless you found some super secret market. But strong investors are still making it work. And that's kind of what I really wanted to bring you on to talk about. Because I've seen some of your posts in the land groups, and you seem to have a very detailed operation. You're still finding success in this ever-changing economy. And the most common concern that I hear from land investors or prospective land investors, I guess it really hasn't changed. It was the same thoughts I had when I started, but it's like clearly a more challenging environment. How do you find a deal? So I'm curious, are you still using the tried and true method of just send out mailers and cross your fingers?
Well, I guess it's always cross the fingers, but
Yeah.
no, mail works. A couple observations though. There's so many people mailing that you've got to stand out. You've got to do
Yep.
something different. You've got to come across as a real person and somebody that there's some connection, or at
Hmm.
least seem very legitimate. So, don't use a boilerplate letter like that worked years ago. And when somebody's getting one letter a year or,
Yep.
every 6 months, okay, that can still work. But now, people are getting multiple letters monthly. So you can't have the same thing. And most of what I've done is blind offer letters where there's a purchase
Yep.
price in the letter, which is a lot more harder on the front end.
Yep.
But I don't know who said it, but choose your hard. Do you want
Hmm.
hard on the front end or hard on the back end? And what I mean is, if you just send a neutral letter or something without a specific price, you're going to get a lot back. There's a lot of people that want to sell their land, but there's also a lot of people that just don't know what their land is worth. So they just kind of pick a number. Yeah, my land is worth $10 million. How did
Yep.
you arrive at that number? Oh, Google bought a data center in the next county over and they paid $10 million. Well, that has nothing to do with your land.
Yeah.
uh, my point is, if you can send a letter that looks legitimate, some sort of connection, for me, blind offers, with a purchase price, hey, I will pay this in this county in this area,
Yep.
and and that's worked for me. Um, it takes more time, and I'm sure I've overthought it so many times, and I'm sure I could have gotten more mail out the door sooner, but still the blind offer does work. And I've even gotten people, a year later they'll return the letter. Hey, is this offer still good? Like
Yep.
somehow they kept the letter, and I'm surprised by that because you would have thought they've gotten eight more letters in the meantime, but or 28, but not necessarily. So I'm sure my offer was better than others. Otherwise, they wouldn't have called me. So I did
Hmm.
something right. Now I'm sure because that wasn't like one letter, one property. There were
Yep.
thousands that missed.
Yep.
You know, was it the letter that didn't resonate? Was it the price that didn't resonate? It's always going to be a lot of people that just aren't going to sell their land. It's a family, estate. They want to keep it, or they're just not, in the mood. Whatever. But for me, direct mail's been the number one. And then I'd also say you have to know values. It it's very difficult to cast a very wide net because then you've got to learn either multiple counties or multiple states. I mean, I know people that have made their living in just two or three counties, and some people
Yeah.
maybe even just one county
Yep.
because they really had a handle on what they could buy it for and what they could sell it for, and then just wait for the right opportunity and not
Yeah.
and not try and force things. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of always my suggestion is, you got to look at your business like, you want it to be as clean running as possible. So I guess that's probably where I'd start. Like a lot of people think it starts with just sending mail, but really, like you have to go back a few steps and start with, what market you're identifying. I mean, even now, when people say I'm going to mail this county, I say you're too broad. You're already too broad. Like it's too challenging to mail an entire county if you're going to do blind offers and really get the right offer price on the letters. So, I mean, going back to the beginning, like, are you still continuing to go into new markets, or have you kind of built a calendar where you're cycling through the same areas again and again?
You know, I'd be more efficient if I was just kind of cycling through and just kind of doing the same counties. However, the world changes and the business
Hmm.
changes. And so where I used to do a lot of counties in Florida, I pulled back because I noticed that, some areas were just getting overwhelmed
Yep.
with investor marketing. And I just decided I just didn't want to be in those markets in that environment. And also, Florida was great during the pandemic and even before that. But
Hmm.
now I think it's slowed down. I guess people in Texas would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Some markets, though, I found other markets and just kind of using the tools, excuse me, that are available to see, where's activity, what's growing, what seems to be a good area. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes open for new areas. If an agent asks me what areas, I usually say, USA.
Yeah.
I'm happy looking in a lot of areas.
Okay, and you mentioned tools. What this is a big challenge, right? So especially if you're new and you start digging, you'll find a vast array of tools, and everybody wants some sort of monthly subscription from you. What tools are you currently using to gather market data in order to make sure that an area you're trying to acquire land in is a good opportunity zone?
Yeah. So I use a few. I've used Priced. They've got
Hmm.
some good research tools, and you can also buy data through their platform. And then I also use the land portal.
Okay.
That's really nice. They have got a filter that can show road frontage. I like to do a lot of minor subdivides where I'm taking
Yep.
40 acres and carving out 5 or 10 acre parcels, or it could be bigger, it could be larger. I mean, I've done, 160 acres where I cut it up a few different ways. And so
Yeah.
that's my favorite type of approach to get creative with that, but it really also depends on the county.
Hmm.
What will they allow? What's the topography? I was going to buy one recently that was over 100 acres. On one of the mapping tools, Land ID, it didn't look like it was that rough.
Yeah.
And I put it into a different tool that showed contour lines, and I'm like, whoa, that's a lot different than I expected. And there was a big downslope from the road. And the reason I mention that is most people don't want their home below the level of the road. I mean, the water's
Yeah.
going to run down. You've got, slope issues to deal with. You got a lot of things. So initially, I was excited. Wow, look at all that road frontage, but it's a lot more than that. It's, what's the area like? Who's going to buy it? How can I sell it? How can I divide it? And then are people going to want to buy it? Um, I say so often now or here's what I said last year. A year ago, I said, I want properties that out of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, I want a 7. I
Right.
don't want a 5. I don't want an average property or certainly not less. I want a 7. Now I think I want an 8.
Yeah.
The market is getting more challenging. There are places where property's sitting. Nobody's got to go out. Well, most people don't have to go out and buy land. It's not a have to unless they really know they want to build a house. This is the right time. They're starting a family. Excuse me. Or other circumstances, they're going to buy some land. They could just go buy a house. There's nothing preventing them from that, but they want to create their own thing, or they do the math. And if they want to put, for example, a manufactured home on 5 and 10 acres, that's going to cost a lot less than going in and buying a site built home in some neighborhood that's already
Oh yeah.
developed.
Yep. Yep.
So, and I should say, I sell a lot with owner finance.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm helping the affordable housing situation in America by doing that and letting people pay over time.
Yeah, tote the note land. That's good. And I would like to get into that a little bit more here shortly. But okay, so you um, you use Priced and Land Portal to try to pick an area. You're looking at specific statistics, right? Are you looking at sort of like absorption rate or strike through rate? What are the big things that stand out to you when you're trying to select a market?
Yes. So I look at all those days on market, what's selling, but then, you know, it's also challenging to be in markets where all the other land investors are going to look at similar tools and wind
Yes.
up, hey, let's say there's a state and there's 3 counties that always pop out as, hey, these are the 3 best counties. Well, guess what? Those are the counties that are going to get hit by the most marketing. And then you've got to watch your margin. Can you pick up a property and get it, the type of margin that you need in order to be safe, in order to make a profit,
Yep.
if you're working just in those 3 counties? So I've also sold land in areas that other people might have considered remote, but if it's a good property and if the price works and I kind of feel like, hey, I've sold property like this before, being comfortable with being a little more remote and out in the country because there are a lot of people in the country, but let's look at the property. Are there wetlands, flood zone, topography, pricing, all those things. So, yeah, being in markets where the data says, hey, let's be in this market, but for me, I'm not going to exclude a market just because it's not popping out to the top of those parameters on the different tools.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll use them, but as a guideline and not a strict rule.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if you're willing to couple that with owner financing. I mean, I've had some of my best luck operating in well, they're large land counties, but tiny population counties. Um, and I was the only person that did acquisition in that area, really. So I remember I sent like a 500 piece mailer and I acquired something like 10 properties, all at like that 10 to 15% dollar range. This was a couple years ago. And I was concerned. I was like, that's kind of a high response rate. Am I really going to be able to sell these things? But there was nothing else on market and there was nothing else affordable on market. So I had no problem. I just owner financed them. I was getting my money out after 2 or 3 months of the owner financing, and that was some of the best deals that I did that year. It was just in this tiny market that if anyone else looked at the statistics, they would have said, they would have snubbed their nose at it. Um, and maybe that was luck. I'm sure it was, but there's definitely money to be had in markets that may not necessarily have the best absorption rate or days on market or whatever else, if you have the ability to do owner financing or something creative on the disposition side. Um, and I do like kind of what you mentioned earlier. I think too many folks are missing the fact that you need to have a vision for the end buyer wherever you are. Like when you're identifying a product type or an area that you want to work in, you need to look at that individual property and say, does this fit the criteria, not of me, but of whoever I'm going to sell it to? Because if it doesn't meet that criteria, then you are going to be in a world of hurt, whether it's topography issues, if someone's going to build out there, or you're going to try to sell it to a hunter, but it's just a field. These things are contradictory, and you need to be apprised of the needs of the end buyer. So that's a very poignant thing that I think is challenging for newbies because they haven't been through a lot of transactions. But it is definitely one of the things that allow you to stand out when you are maybe a little more seasoned and working in a market like that. Okay, so you identify a market, you're using some of these tools. You're, I wouldn't say shying away from maybe the hotter markets or the ones where there's a lot of competition, but rather you just have sort of a broader skill set where your business is applicable even in some further out areas. I'm with you on that. Um, well, then it comes time to actually put a mailer together, right? Are you buying lists using like data tree or one of these services, or are you compiling the information yourself? What's your approach there just in handling the data?
Yeah, so lately I'm really using mostly the land portal. So I found it to be great. You could pull the data right from there, sort it. There's different parameters you could pull. How long have they owned it? What's the road frontage? Get rid of wetlands, get rid of landlocked properties. So it's a great tool for that and also research. So I'm pulling a list and then cleaning it up a little bit, making sure the mailing addresses are correct, names are correct, figuring out, okay, they've got some estimated values, but any computerized tool even though there's a lot more AI than there used to be, I still think manually looking, hey, in this county, or even more specifically, in this area of the county, what's the average selling price per acre? If that price is $10,000, hey, I could buy something for 5,000 an acre and I won't
Yeah,
get hurt, or at least I shouldn't, even if it's a slower market.
yep,
And, I do think on the selling side, be prepared to leave some meat on the bone
yeah,
or a little bit so somebody feels like they're getting a deal. I'm sure I've sold a lot of properties where somebody felt, really most people felt, hey, I'm buying this because I'm getting a decent deal.
yeah,
Um, so between the owner finance and between the pricing, I think knowing the pricing on the selling side is really important. So it could be, you know, buy for five, sell for 10. It could be buy for 2,500, sell for 5,000 in a more
hmm,
remote, slower county. So, knowing all that. And then, when it comes time to sell, sometimes I'll use agents, but mostly I haven't.
oh,
Mostly,
really?
yeah, especially with the owner finance, I feel like I've done a lot of that, so I know how to describe it, position it. If somebody says, "Hey, what if I can't quite do your down payment of 10,000, will you take a little bit less?" Well, can you do a higher monthly payment? Or tell me about your situation. And if they say, "Oh, we know we're going to build on it. We're just not ready. We have to sell our house.
Yeah.
We'll probably paid off in a year." I'll be a lot more flexible if somebody has that kind of situation where I think I'm getting the money back out. I just don't want the money to sit in a property, for too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
My
yeah,
favorite is, hey, I got this 2014 Toyota Tacoma. Can I trade you this?
yeah. We take Bitcoin.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, so how about just the blocking and tackling of putting do you have like a master spreadsheet? Are you pricing the parcels individually, or do you have some sort of formula built out where you plug in a price per acreage and it just fills everything out for you?
All the above. I don't have like one set thing. So it could be like an average per acre. If it's a county where it seems like the prices are uniform throughout the entire county. When
Hmm.
the prices aren't, maybe I'll try and take a zip code or take a town. And if that one town, for example, that let's say there's a county with one town where it's close to the highway or everybody wants to be in that town or city, then those prices are going to be higher. So you've
Yeah,
got to price those properties higher than you would, in a situation where everything's remote or just, you've got to be willing to be flexible with how you do that.
yeah. Um, yeah, that's perfect. I agree. Like the more granular you can be in pricing is really where you can stand out. The difference of how insulted someone feels if they see a 50% of retail value offer versus like a 30% because you're being hyper conservative or not taking into account all the variables is a very different reaction. Um, Now I have a question. You says you like to do subdivide projects. Are you going to create special mailers just to go target and find those subdividable properties? Or are those just going to be sort of peppered into a larger mailer and you're going to underwrite those individually when they come in as a response?
I'll offer more on properties where we've identified better road frontage, just kind of knowing that, that's our plan. So I haven't necessarily sent a letter that said, "Hey, I want to take your property and subdivide it."
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that anyway, because maybe people might not love that idea that their land is going to be divided.
Chopped up. Yeah.
But, but, um, I have looked at that as a factor. It's like, hey, I want to target this area and we can offer more because we think we can get more by selling smaller parcels when you
Right. You can
divide it,
increase your, yep, yep, exactly.
increase the value. So if you have a landowner contact you and they've got 200 acres, there's not that many people in the market for 200 acres or 100 acres. There's a lot more people in the market for 10. Now,
Yep.
a lot of landowners don't like the idea of dealing with, let's say you got 100 acres, you divide it into 10 acre parcels. Now you got 10 different buyers you got to deal with.
Hmm.
A lot of people get stressed out by that. And then it's like, all right, what if one of those 10, puts a junkyard on the property or a shooting
Yep.
range or some other things. So then you got to have some ground rules.
Yep.
So, a lot of people don't like the word restriction, but if the choice is living next to somebody that's operating a shooting range or a junkyard, all of a sudden some restrictions don't sound too bad.
Right. Exactly.
So you don't want too many. I've seen POAs and HOAs where they've got a 30-page document. You already lost me.
Yeah.
You probably lost me at anything beyond a page or two. And
Hmm.
I'm guessing most people feel the same way.
Yep.
So if you can do very light restrictions, and then also on that, if a property owner says, "Hey, I understand that concept, but I just don't want to deal with it." Okay, let me deal with it. I'm used to it, or you can deal with it. There's some different things that can be done in that situation. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of property that is sitting that would move if it were divided.
Hmm.
But yet you have to be careful. That one property I mentioned where the topography just wasn't great, where the slope was wrong, or maybe there's a creek by the road and now all of a sudden it looks challenging to cross that creek. That property might not be the right property to think about dividing. So
Yeah.
sometimes it can seem simple, but it's not as simple as the more road frontage, the better, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Are you sending out people to look at these properties before you make the purchase, or even like a drone photographer to go out before you purchase them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
even though I don't necessarily go, yeah, we'll definitely get as much information as we can, order a drone. If they can walk it, that's great. And now I am using agents more for areas that I don't know.
Hmm.
And I think that's good because hey, if it's an area I know what people will buy, and I know that, in Florida, really just about everything is flat. So it's
Yep.
a lot easier than if I were in Tennessee or North Carolina or some of these states that lot of terrain, and sometimes that's fine, but other times it's the wrong kind of slope or terrain, and a local agent will kind of know what people buy.
Hmm.
And so I'm not anti-agent by any means. I just kind of started, and also when I started with small properties, and if there's a property that's going to sell for $25,000, the reality is an agent's not going to make enough
Yeah.
that they're going to get so excited by that. Now that I'm doing bigger properties, six-figure properties, now there's enough where an agent, they can have a professional career and get paid well,
Yeah.
and and I'm happy to work in those situations with agents that are good.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have your list put together now. The question I have then is you mentioned having an offer letter that stands out. Do you have any practical advice on putting together an offer letter? Should you just post on Facebook and be like, give me an offer letter, somebody please? Or do you have some helpful ideas on how to craft something that would stand out?
I've been in sales most of my career, and I think marketing goes along with sales.
Hmm.
They're different, but they've got to sort of work together. And so, I'll try and make something that looks, and I'm sure in my initial letters probably looked way too corporate and big
Hmm.
company-ish. And while that might work for some people, there's also probably a lot of people that, they don't want to deal with the big company. And maybe I made it look too big company-ish. So now I try and
Yeah.
make it look a little more personal, tell them what they can expect. Hey, here's why you should work with me. Low hassle. Here's what we'll do. Here's who we are. Um, that sort of thing. And to try and
Hmm.
build some comfort. If I can get a phone call, there's a lot of people that they've never sold land, or it's been so
Right.
long they don't know. So I'll let them know, hey, we're gonna do this through a title agency. You'll be protected because they're not going to sign anything over unless our money is in their bank account. They'll send you a
Right.
check directly. So
Yeah.
once I tell them that, a lot of people don't even know that. I mean, just if you're in the land business or real estate business of any kind, you just kind of assume, oh yeah, people know. But no, I don't think people do. I think it's really
Hmm.
just kind of, answering whatever questions, making them feel comfortable, making them feel like, hey, you know what, this is the right person to deal with.
Right. And you try to build that verbiage into the letter, or do you keep it maybe a little more simple and try to get them to engage you on the phone, right? Because there's kind of if you give too much information, then they don't have a reason to contact you. If you don't give enough information, then you don't appear trustworthy enough to call. Like, I feel like that's always been a hard thing to strike a balance on.
Yeah, and there's no one right answer, and I think it takes some experimenting. Like
Hmm.
I prefer a one-page letter and
Yep.
not more than that because people also don't like to read, and that's a terrible thing to say, but um, I think if your letter's too long, it goes into the pile of I'll do it later, and everybody's kind of starved for attention these
Yep.
days. Attention's the hardest thing, so it's got to be simple enough where somebody can make a decision. I do want them to call. I do want to talk to them. And there's a lot of times people will call and it'll be a property where I'm just not sure of it. And I'll say, you know what? I know we sent you a letter, but it's different than we thought. And no, thank you. Just can't do it.
Yep.
There's, a gully along the road. There's more wetlands. There's an oil well or something on the property that's a detractor.
Hmm.
Um, if the oil's well produced, if the oil's well is producing and you get to keep the revenue, that's a positive. But most of the
Yeah.
time, you're not keeping the revenue. That oil well is there, and somebody else is getting the revenue.
Yep.
Or same thing, big radio antenna. Um, it was a gravel pit, something.
Hmm.
Um, and then we just, can't buy every property. And hey,
Yep.
in general, we buy it if it meets the expectations that we thought were there.
Right.
But sometimes you got to say no, thank you.
Yeah, and I think, my mentality on that has always been when there's an inbound lead, you want to kill that deal as quickly as possible. Like you want to find the reason that you can't buy it as quickly as possible. And if you're spinning your wheel and you can't find a good reason to not buy that property, then you probably have a good one. Um, and I think that's sort of a good mentality for folks that are new because they'll take the opposite approach often. They'll be like, they'll look at all the pros of the property and then they'll get dead set on that and then they'll downplay the negatives, but those sneaky negatives are what get you on the disposition side. When you're like, oh, I'm going to overlook look this access issue. I'm sure someone can build a bridge here in the future. I'm sure it won't be a problem. And then nobody can actually get onto the property because there's no access over a stream or something like that. Is that similar to how you view it?
It is. And if I look at a property and I'm not sure about it and I say, okay, I'll look at it tomorrow. Let me put it to the side and look at it again tomorrow. It's like, yeah, I'm still not sure. It could work. I'm not sure. And if I got to look at it again, then it's not a heck yes.
Hmm.
And then if it's not a heck yes, it really needs to be a no. It's like
Yeah.
if I can't find a creative way to say, oh yeah, hey, this is good. I really like this. This is great. Let me move forward. If that doesn't happen quickly, then I think, you know what, I'm just going to pass. And I've never really looked back and said, "Oh yeah, I'm really sorry. I just kind of forget those." And there's plenty of property that can work, but I certainly don't want to get stuck. I mean, that's not something I want to do. I
Hmm.
want to buy a property with the idea that, hey, somebody else is going to love that property and it's become theirs, and maybe I'll sell it with owner finance and help them do it that way. So part of it's, hey, can I be helpful in this whole process? But I also don't want to get stuck with something because I don't want to, if I'm taking calls myself, which I do take a lot of calls from potential buyers, I don't want to have to get 40 people to call me to
Right.
find one unique unicorn to buy that property. I want three people to go look at it and one of those people to buy it. I mean, it'd
Yep.
be great if one person looked and they bought it, but that doesn't happen often. It has happened, but yeah, I think being careful also in what you buy or don't buy is very important.
Yeah. All right, so we got to the point. We got a letter put together, and we're about to send mail. My question is, are you using like a bulk mailing house for your offer letters? How do you handle just the getting it out the door?
Yeah, great question. So I am, but I get a lot of letters on properties that I've had, and you know what? The envelopes all look alike. I shouldn't
Yes.
say all. They mostly look alike.
Hmm.
Now I'm starting to experiment with unique types of mailers, different envelopes, different companies, different um, different things that somebody's going to receive. So it doesn't look like the 20 other letters they've gotten in the last 6 months.
Hmm.
And so thinking about that from a marketing, experiment is good as well. So sometimes it's timing, it's what you have in the letter, but is the letter getting opened? So
Right.
trying to be unique there. Some people are doing mailers themselves. So it's not
Yep.
as efficient, or you have to figure out an efficient process.
That's what we do.
But yeah, but I think there's a lot of value to that. A real stamp, something that looks like, hey, this is from a real person. I'm going to open it because I'm really curious. So if you can create some curiosity, um, I've heard people put, stickers on letters. I haven't done it, a monkey sticker, a smiley face sticker, something. Haven't done the monkey stickers, but being unique is really the main point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of gimmicky ways to do it. I've heard people like, I use a bright red envelope or something like that, or I have it stamped urgent. There's whatever works. I'm not going to downplay whatever works for somebody. I've heard people putting pennies in the mailers or whatever. But my thought was very simple. Like, have I ever received a hand addressed and hand stamped envelope and not opened it? Never once, you know?
Right.
So if you start all the way back at the beginning and you're getting the best data and you're putting together a list that ideally is limited down to properties that mostly you want to buy, you've already done a bunch of the exclusion work. Then like the worst thing you can do is just shove it in a regular bulk mail house envelope, low priority, and ship it out. And have your letter look like everybody else's. It's like, man, you're going to miss the most pivotal step of getting someone to actually open and read that letter. Um,
That's right. That's right.
so I think it's crucial that you're paying attention to that. And that's great knowledge to share. And then of course, if somebody does read your letter and they are interested in the offer, do they call a 1-800 number to the Philippines? What's your intake system like?
Yeah, I've got an answering service, but I've also experimented with putting a number that's my direct number so that I'll answer it. And
Hmm.
so I do a little bit of both. Sometimes I'll say, hey, this is my direct number. Give me a call. If I don't answer, just please leave a voicemail. Again, showing them that I'm a real person. And if I answer the phone, uh, I'll say this. There's a lot of people that get marketing from people that are, I don't know if I should use the word sketchy, but it doesn't really exude confidence in a potential seller because things are disjointed. The number is different than the address, and the name on the envelope is different, or just they want to make sure that they're secure in this transaction.
Hmm.
So if they're getting a letter from me with my name on it, and I answer the phone and say, "Hi, this is Peter," that builds some credibility and some trust, and that's
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. And it could still be, hey, I'll have a conversation with anybody about their land. Hey, why is this? And I'll ask the question, why is this a good time to sell it? Hey, you've had this land for 20 years, or this was family land. You've had it in the family for 100 years. What makes this a good time to sell it? And then just kind of listen to their story. And it's amazing, like how much land there is out there that, yeah, it's been in their family for a long time.
Hmm.
But just, circumstances, people move away, the family's kind of scattered now. There's no reason to keep it. It's better to turn that into an asset that's liquid that they can use. So
Hmm.
it's, good to hang on to land, but sometimes you just got to let it go. And then you got to figure out, all right, do I want to put it on the market and have a lot of people traipsing through and you just never know? If I put it in the market, it's also going to advertise it to all the local folks that, maybe I don't want that advertised. Maybe I would just rather get a fair cash sale and just move on and just
Hmm.
kind of know that, hey, this is the price. I'm good with it. I trust it because it's going through a local title company and I'm happy with the deal. So this kind of work for both parties.
Yep. Yep. Man, well, you've already given a ton of super valuable information. So many folks think that acquisitions is so opaque, but it's really not. It's just sort of dissecting the entire acquisition process into each of the important steps and trying to do your best at each one of those. If you can select a good market, you can put together a decent list, you can apply the right pricing to that list, and you can put it on a mailer in an envelope that'll actually get opened. I think you will still find success in this market. Um, do you have any other sort of useful advice as in regards to acquisition that the audience can take away with them?
So I'll say, even to this day, I'm listening to podcasts about land and watching YouTube videos about land. So you have to have a passion for it. You have to like it or love it to some degree. And so
Hmm.
even now, there's so many like little helpful tricks or tips or just the market's changing. So to learn what people are thinking.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think all that. So I think you've got to study. I think you've got to like it. And then I think you've got to just, iterate. I think you've got to see, hey, what's working? Maybe what worked a year or two ago is not working now.
Hmm.
Maybe trying something else or just always experimenting. And so I tell people that I work with, hey, you know what? It's all an experiment. It's, hey, we're going to do this the way we did it, or we're going to do this new thing and see how this new thing works. And maybe for somebody else in their particular area, maybe that's going to work. But maybe in the areas that I'm in or you're in, those same things might not work the same way. Just
Right.
whatever. So I think always trying new things, the way that you make offers, the way that you approach it, the types of properties you look at. I think all those things you always got to be looking at.
Okay. Well, perfect. I mean, that went by really fast. We're already at our time. If people wanted to reach out to you, would you be interested in that? Do you have a way for people to contact you? My audience is mostly land investors or real estate-minded individuals, so I'm sure there's some curious folks.
Sure. So a couple things. So my website is Land by USA. By is BUY. So landbyusa.com. You can reach me at Peter at landbyusa.com. Or let me also give you a phone number. Probably the best number is 813-692-4900. And they're welcome to give me a call if you just want to talk land or anything else.
Awesome. Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time, man. That was super valuable. Folks, if you're struggling with acquisitions, no more excuses. Peter just told you how to do it, right? Just got to put your uh, get some elbow grease going, get into the work, and you will acquire deals. And don't get held up by feeling like you don't know because nobody really knows. I mean, people kind of know, but that, like Peter just said, you're
Sure.
always having to be novel and reinventing and using your imagination and gamifying it in any way you need to be successful. Um, so thank you again so much. Folks, remember, if you need your land deals funded, check us out at landpartnerfunding.com. If you have a property or a project that you would like some advice on, maybe you want to partner with it or do some sort of JV with me or my team, reach out to me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. And folks, we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.